Hi everybody, thank you for being here. I know most of you have to be here, but thank you anyway. Thanks for being here at Junior College Night. I'm going to ask that you put your phones away and any devices that you have, you will not need them tonight. So yeah, this is an opportunity for us to have three admissions officers with us so that you don't have to listen to me. You can actually get information tonight from people who actually read applications and make decisions on those applications. So I want to introduce them to you tonight. To my right is Binda, who is an admissions director at Boston University. She primarily travels to Long Island and Queens. It's a great borough, by the way. And is responsible for the review of applications from these areas. She works closely with BU's early decision and early decision 2 populations. Beyond application review, she contributes to the planning of off-campus recruitment initiatives and manages the BU Admissions Alumni Volunteer Program. Julia is also an alumna of BU's College of Arts and Sciences and is currently completing her master's degree in Educational Leadership and Policy Studies at BU School of Education.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, thanks.
To her right is Crystal Artis Bates, who has held roles in admissions and enrollment management at NYU for over a decade. She currently serves as Senior Associate Director for Diversity Initiatives at NYU. In her current role, she is responsible for supporting initiatives that aim to increase the numbers of Black, Latino, and Native American students at NYU. She currently chairs a scholarship selection committee responsible for the awarding of over 500 scholarships, many of which are awarded to students from traditionally underserved communities. Crystal attended Spelman College as an undergraduate and has completed coursework toward a master's degree in Africana Studies at NYU. And to her right is Victor Wang. Fun fact, I've known Victor since he was about 2, so we've been friends for a really long time.
I love it. I love that.
Victor was born in Binghamton, New York, but raised in New York City. After graduating from the Bronx High School of Science, he pursued his studies at SUNY Geneseo, where he majored in international relations and minored in Asian studies and Spanish. An active member of the campus community, Victor was an assistant editor for the school newspaper, study abroad intern, an actor in an audition-only improv comedy group, a Bible study leader, and tour guide. He briefly worked as an admissions counselor at SUNY Maritime College before he was graciously brought back into the Geneseo community as their NYC admissions counselor. In his free time, Victor volunteers at his church, enjoys comedy, and tries to get in a workout here or there. All right. I think I've sent the questions that are going to be asked tonight to all of you, so I'm just going to start with the first question tonight, and feel free to jump in at any time. Just very, very briefly, could you go over a general overview of the admissions process? What happens from the time that you receive a student's application to the time of decision?
Sure. I'll jump in, I'll go first. I think really there are 2 main questions that we're looking at when we sit down to review an application. And if I'm a little crackly, my throat's been acting up, so sorry. But there's sort of 2 big questions we're looking to answer, and one is the student an academic fit for BU? Do they have that rigorous coursework and preparation? And then sort of culturally outside the classroom, what else will they bring to campus? That academic piece is really first and foremost your transcript, so the work that you've done in high school that we're really considering just within the context of your school in particular. The courses that you've taken, how well you've done in those courses, standardized test scores kind of as a supplement to that. Letters of recommendation certainly to get a sense of who you are in the classroom, whether you participate, if you're involved in your school community. And then those less numeric pieces as well. So your essays, that's our best chance to get to know a little bit more about who you are. You know, what are you doing when you're not in class? What are you passionate about? And then that's supplemented as well by those extracurricular activities. Could be sports, could be community service, could be a part-time job or family responsibilities. And then your demonstrated interest in BU as well. You know, have you visited campus? Have you come to the visits that we've done at your high school? Things like that, really to get a sense of both what you would be bringing to the classroom and then as well what you'd be bringing to the life in your residence hall, the clubs that you join, things like that, kind of big picture.
So at NYU, we practice a similar sort of holistic approach to how we review applications. When your applications come to us, they don't just kind of go out into the ether and then magic happens, right? And then you receive an admissions decision. We have a pretty comprehensive review process that allows several sets of eyes to review your applications. We feel like it's important for different admissions counselors to have a look at your academic credentials, your extracurricular involvement, because we realize that we bring to the table our own sort of worldview and perspectives and experiences, and we want to make sure that every application is reviewed in a way that is sort of most beneficial to a student. So when your applications arrive, your regional representative will most likely review your application. He or she will be really familiar with your school's curriculum, activities that are available to you. They'll have a good sense of your school's demographic makeup, kind of what the culture of your school is like, and they will make an initial decision on your application. In some cases, we'll review your application and we'll go, she's a rock star, she's a standout, yes, 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 let's admit her, right? Those are the fun ones, right? In other cases, we might review a student's application and go, you know what, something's missing here. I don't think the academic fit is there. I don't think the NYU fit is here. And then in those cases, we'll sadly have to not offer admission to those students. And those are not so fun cases, right? But then there's a big chunk of students who fall in that middle ground, right? Students that we're really excited about. We know there's something there. The academic fit piece is there. All of the other sort of NYU pieces are there, but we feel like it needs to go through another round or two of review. And so those applications will go through a more rigorous sort of review, and then we come out in the end with what we think is a really diverse and dynamic class. So the important things I think to remember about our process is that it is pretty comprehensive, it's pretty holistic. We do our very, very best to try to understand who you are inside of the classroom, outside of the classroom, what you're passionate about, what we think you might bring to our campus community, keeping in mind all of those wonderful things like diversity and gender balance and folks who are interested in majors that might be underrepresented on our campus. So that's what our process looks like in a nutshell.
Great. I guess it's my turn. But in the interest of time and to just keep it sort of brief, Geneseo, we're a smaller state school, so we do the same thing. You know, we take a very holistic approach at your application. So we take a look at, you know, your essay, your GPA, your SAT score, ACT, and whatnot, as well as recommendations. So again, we look at everything on a smaller scale, just because we're a bit smaller. So if you guys aren't from New York City, but I'm from New York City and I read all the New York City applications, what's going to happen is I'll read your application, write a few notes about the student. You know, if this student is a stellar student, you know, what are they a part of? Have I met this student? I guess at a smaller school, it's easier for me to remember who you are versus, you know, a school that might have like 20,000 people. So that's, I guess, contrast to what a bigger school might have. But for the most part, when we look at the application, it is a very similar approach to what BU and NYU does.
Julie, can you discuss the different types of applications, early decision, early action, restricted early action, regular decision, rolling, and how would a student determine if they were better served by applying early?
Sure. So early decision and early action, those are words you hear thrown out a lot that can get really confusing. Biggest tip, you know, as you think about all these different ways that you can apply to different schools is make sure you're really looking at each individual school to see what they offer, because it really is very different from place to place. With early decision and early action, with early action first, you're really just acting early. So you're applying early, you get your admissions decision back early, but you still have until typically that May 1st national reply deadline to decide if that's the right fit for you. With early decision, you're actually deciding early. You already know that that school is definitely the place that you want to be. So when you submit your application, it's to a binding program where you're saying, yes, if I'm in, I'm definitely coming. And then if you are admitted under early decision, the expectation is that you submit your enrollment deposit, withdraw your other applications. That's kind of that big differentiation there. Some schools do also offer a restricted early action. So early decision, you can only apply to one school because you're saying, yes, I'm coming to this school, so you couldn't do that with more than one. With early action, typically you can do more than one unless a school does offer a restricted early action where they're asking that you just apply to that school early action, showing them a little bit more interest there. But again, usually you'll still have a little bit more time to get that decision in. Similarly with, which students are better served by applying early decision, early action, it can vary a little bit from school to school. So this is more from my perspective at BU. But if you know that BU is where you want to be, there are really two big benefits to applying early decision. We do offer both early decision and early decision 2, which is another one that you'll hear sometimes. At BU, there's no difference between early decision and early decision 2 besides the deadlines. So the deadline for ED is November 1st. For ED2, it's January 1st. It just gives you a little bit more time there. The real benefits to applying early decision. First is the demonstrated interest. So this past year we got over 60,000 applications. And that means that there are a lot of students academically, personally, that are qualified to be at BU that would be a really great fit for campus. And we just don't have room for all of them. So we look at a lot of other factors to determine which students really want to be on campus, because we want to be bringing students to campus that we know want to be there, that are going to engage and really, bring life to Boston University. So we look at things like whether you visited campus, your YBU essay. I mentioned, I come down and visit here every fall, so if you stop by my visit. Early decision really is the ultimate demonstrated interest, because you're saying, yes, if I'm in, I'm coming. And we know those are students that are excited, that are going to jump in and get involved day one. So that really is a big benefit. The other benefit to early decision and early decision 2 is the size of the pool. And this is true at a lot of schools. The early decision pool tends to be smaller. At BU this past year, we got about 3,400 applications through early decision and early decision 2 combined. And we took 35% of our class from that pool of 3,400. And then the other 65% of the class came from a pool of over 55,000. So you can see just numerically, there really is benefit to being in that smaller pool, helping your application stand out a little bit. And then the other thing is we have all of our seats open when we review students for early decision. You've got the first crack at that class. We have, our full class of 3,400 that's open, and we're looking to fill it with really excited students. So there definitely is a benefit to early decision and early decision 2 for those two reasons. And we do tend to see students that maybe numerically their GPA or SAT scores might be a little bit lower, but they really are making up for that in that demonstrated interest, that excitement about Boston University. So there's definitely a benefit, especially if BU is where you want to be and you're afraid that maybe you don't feel you fit quite into those averages. Early decision is definitely a good thing to consider, but again, does vary from school to school how they consider that population.
Crystal, 2 questions. One, is it okay to apply undecided? And secondly, I've heard that if I apply to a major that isn't very popular, I'll have a better chance of getting in.
Sticky questions, right? The second one's a little less sticky than the first. So is it okay to apply as an undecided major? At NYU, and I'll speak from the NYU perspective, it is. We know that at 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, you change your mind a lot, right? That tends to happen. Maybe if I talk to your teachers and your parents, they might agree with me, right? So we understand that when students, indicate on their application, I'm interested in computer science, they might get to NYU and take a documentary filmmaking class and fall in love and want to become a filmmaker, right? And so then they'll internally transfer to the Tisch School of the Arts, right? And that happens. So we aren't kind of holding you to the major that you declare on your application. Most students at NYU who are undecided will apply to the College of Arts and Science, and the benefit to that is the College of Arts and Science is our largest college. It houses the most majors. A liberal arts core is a great springboard for any career or discipline, right, or any interest that you have. So I would say that being undecided right now or when you're ready to apply to college is not necessarily a bad thing. I think most college applications will provide you with some space to talk about what some of your academic interests might be, right? So you can kind of share those many interests if there are a lot of them. And I know at NYU we also allow students to say to us, listen, I'm undecided, but I kind of like the College of Arts and Science. I like your liberal studies program. I like the Steinhardt School, right? And so we give you some space to talk about some other schools or programs that you might be interested in. So not a bad thing to be undecided. And then the second question about underrepresented majors. So we have this major at NYU. It's called Integrated Digital Media. Nobody really knows about it. It's really tiny, right? It's in the Tandon School of Engineering. When we see an IDM applicant, we jump up and down. We get really excited. And we advocate for that student in a way that displays that excitement. So underrepresented majors are priorities for most institutions because we want to make departments happy and faculty happy and chairpersons happy. So applying to an underrepresented major can be cool for you, but make sure you're really applying to that major because you're into it and not because you're kind of, trying to wiggle your way into a situation, right? So at NYU, we make students stay in the major that they indicate on their application for a full academic year, right? So you kind of have to live with integrated digital media, right, for a year until you're eligible to transfer out of that program. So I would advise against any sort of wiggling. I have a 3-year-old and we wiggle a lot, so this is happening. So I'd advise against kind of trying to trick us in the application, but apply to programs that you're interested in, and if it's underrepresented at a particular institution, that could benefit you in the long run.
You may have 100 IDM applicants next year.
Well, that was the plan today. That was the plan.
Victor, can you address standardized testing? Specifically, do colleges really superscore the best interest of the student, and how will you use the essay sections of the ACT and SAT, if at all?
So for SUNY schools, I think across the board, we don't use the essay section, but we do take your math and verbal scores and superscore them to your best interest, as well as your ACT. So let's say if you take the SAT, 10 times, we'll take the scores that are the best out of the 10 times you've taken it. So it doesn't really matter, how many times you've taken it. It's not like you're going to say, oh, I took the SAT 10 times and they're going to see, so I'm just only going to send in, 2 scores. Just send in all the scores. We'll just calculate it ourselves, and we don't really care how many times you've taken it. As far as it being a factor into decisions as well, it is pretty important, I guess, for my school, speaking on behalf of Geneseo, just because we're a pretty selective state school. And so when we look at the SAT, we really try to put it to your benefit, but also we have to also keep in mind the standards that we hold at the school as well.
Julia, if you could address 2 questions for you as well. How important is student demonstrated interest? And along with that, if I attend a summer program at BU, will it increase my chances of being admitted?
Sure. The demonstrated interest piece, I think I touched on a little bit already. That's definitely something that we're looking at. You know, we do have so many qualified students that we want to make sure we're bringing to campus the ones that are most excited. You know, we recognize not everyone has either the time or the means to come visit campus. So that's why we travel around. I spend 2 months in the fall down in this area visiting lots of different schools. I'm doing an event on the 26th, a reception on Long Island down in Plainview that's sort of a case study about the application process. So there's lots of ways to really stay engaged within your community. And that's true for most schools. Or if you can't actually make it to an event, reach out to your admissions representative. We almost all, if not all of us, our faces are on the website somewhere, along with our email addresses. And, you know, I tell students it's almost never a bad thing if I can remember your name. So if you've reached out, you've emailed me, those are the types of things that sort of, as Crystal touched on, that make us want to get out there and advocate for you as we go through the process. So definitely important. And I'm blanking on the second part of the question.
If I go to a summer program,
Oh, summer programs,
is that
yes.
helpful?
Summer programs are awesome. Summer programs at the university level are going to really be to your benefit at any institution that you choose to apply to. So whether you do that program at BU or at NYU or at a different school, you're showing any institution that you apply to that you are able to do college level coursework and that you are interested in jumping into that even before you were a college student. So there certainly is a benefit in terms of academic rigor there. In terms of, you know, will doing a BU program benefit me when I apply to BU? It certainly isn't going to hurt. You know, again, we recognize not all students have the means to be able to do that, but if you're interested in BU and the programs that you have, or that we have sound cool, I have some pamphlets, so if you are interested, come see me. Really the biggest thing is you get to know campus in a way that most students don't just from doing your typical campus visit, because you're living, most cases, in a dorm, you're taking classes with BU faculty members, or you're doing research in a BU lab. So when it comes time to put together your application and really talk about why you think BU is a good fit for you, you've got a little bit of a leg up there because you've spent a substantial amount of time on campus and really understand it. So definitely something to think about it if you're interested.
I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead.
For some of the summer programs we offer at NYU, faculty, especially in the Tisch summer programs, they actually write letters of recommendation for the students that they endorse. And so when we see those letters from faculty, we go, oh, they really know this student. They like her. She's great. She's engaged. And the faculty don't write those letters they don't do it for everyone. So when we see that letter, that's another positive attribute we can add to an applicant's candidacy.
Crystal, the Stony Brook School has a substantial international population. Can you just talk about what the difference is for international students with regard to the admissions process?
Yeah, so for international students who have studied for less than 3 years in a U.S. institution where the primary level of language, primary language of instruction is English, those students will have to submit some sort of English language proficiency results. From TOEFL is usually the most popular test that students will submit results to us from. Outside of that piece, the application process for international students is absolutely the same. They will use the Common App. They will provide us with wonderful personal statements and talk about their extracurricular involvement, but that TOEFL requirement may be the only difference. Generally, we're looking for TOEFL results above a 100. In some cases, we may invite international students to sit down with us virtually for an interview so we can talk to them a little bit, get to know them a little bit more, have them ask us some questions that they might have about NYU. So I think that's a benefit for our international student population. Every international student that applies will not have the opportunity to interview, and we really reserve that space for a select few students who we are interested to learn a little bit more about.
And just because I know we get a fair number of international applicants as well. BU is about 25% international at the undergraduate level at this point. We do, just as one quick difference, even if you've been, say, at Stony Brook for all 4 years of high school, we really would still be looking for either TOEFL or IELTS scores, just because we feel it can only strengthen your application. The SAT and the ACT are written for students who have done their schooling in the American system. So the TOEFL and the IELTS really can help to complement that and show us your proficiency in English. And then there are some other things that we'll collect with regards to visa requirements, things like that, F1, but we can, that we walk you through as we go through the process.
Victor, I want to start with you, but would welcome input from all of our panelists. As our juniors start thinking about writing their personal statement, can you just tell us, what are you looking for in a strong personal statement?
Yeah, so especially, that's actually a really good portion of your application that we really look at to really understand who you are. I don't know how many football players I already know, and based on your extracurriculars, what I can glean from your extracurriculars, I don't really want to see that on your essay. So it is important for you guys in terms of really demonstrating who you are as a person, and something that's kind of like an intangible factor as well. I spoke to a student. She mentioned that, asked me, how should I go about writing my college essay? And really, I told her, what do you want the admissions counselor to know about you that wouldn't otherwise be seen on a normal essay? So if that is, you like underwater basket weaving, for example, and we don't see that on your application, you can write about it in your essay and talk about how that made some influence in your life. This student wanted to tell me, let me know that I'm really interested in just learning new things. So I told her, just work backwards from there. What was an example of a time where you wanted to learn new things? And she said, well, I joined the fencing team on a whim, just because I thought the swords would look cool. And they look really cool. Yeah, the beekeeper outfit, right? And so I thought it was really awesome that she took the initiative herself to do just that, to learn about how to fence, especially because she comes from an underprivileged school, and to go about doing that really made me understand who the student was. And so when I did read her application, I remember who she was, first of all, but on top of that, I really got to understand, oh, okay, so she didn't only just do fencing just because she grew up doing it. She just wanted to learn about it. And so in the end, what I can glean from your essay shouldn't be something that I can normally glean from your test scores, your essay, test scores, your extracurriculars and whatnot. And it's a really unique portion of the application where you can really display who you are and how you can contribute onto campus in some sense.
I always advise students to use the essay as an opportunity to, one, express something that we wouldn't find in the application, but when you think about it, the essay is the only place in the application where you get to speak and advocate for yourself. We get to hear your voice. Every other piece of the application is either you telling us just basic demographic information, who you are, who your parents are, where you live, where your high school is, who your counselor is, who's your teacher, right? What classes are you taking, right? The other pieces of the application are your teachers telling you what they think about your academic contributions and intellectual contributions to the classroom, and your counselor's gonna write and talk about how wonderful a citizen you are, right, in your school's community. You're active, you're involved, you're engaged, you're helpful, you're a leader, right? But the essay is the only place where you get to share a little bit about who you are and what matters to you and what you're passionate about and what makes you so upset, or what you want to change in the world, or what problem you want to solve in the world. That's an exciting opportunity, I think. Some students get really worked up about the essay and they're sad, they're being mean to their parents because they gotta write the essay, right? They're doing things, they're grumbling about it. But this is really an opportunity for you to showcase to the admissions committee who you are. And I think the most important piece of advice is, not to tell us what you think we want to hear, because I can guarantee you, between us, we've probably read tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of essays.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's one other sort of way to conceptualize it, particularly for a school APU that doesn't do interviews as part of the application process. It's kind of like your interview. You know, any interview you go to, you've always got that one thing, like Crystal talked about, you've got that one thing that you want to know you get to share. One thing that you know you want that interviewer to walk away from and say, I'm going to remember this about this student. So think about it that way, you know. If you're funny, be funny. If you're not funny, maybe not the time to try. And then everyone says this, and I'm going to say it again, proofread it. Proofread it, please. Every year there's someone that talks about going to collage instead of college.
Oh no.
Yeah, there's always one. So have someone that is a human being and not just spell check read it for you. Have someone you love read it. Have someone that doesn't love you read it, because they'll be more honest. But really just, it shows a level of care, a level of maturity. So it's, you know, certainly it's what you write, but it's also how you're writing it and the level of effort that you put in there that's important as well.
Julia and Crystal, in the same vein, can you just talk about what would make a strong supplemental essay?
Yeah. Specificity is a big one. There are 60 colleges and universities in Boston. It is the student capital of the world. Like 1 in 3 people in Boston is a college student come September. And that is a fabulous thing. That is a really great place to be. There are so many benefits to being in a city that is so student-centric. That also means that you could probably write up a pretty nice 250-word blurb about why you really want to go to college in Boston, and then send that blurb to 6 or 7 or 8 different schools. Don't do that. You know, really make sure that you're being specific as to what it is about Boston University that draws you to Boston, that draws you to BU, you know, whether it's the academic flexibility or the beekeeping club or the Quidditch team, study abroad. Really, you know, I mentioned this at the beginning, but when I sit down to review an application, I'm trying to figure out how I see a student on campus. So if you use that supplemental essay to tell me how you see yourself on campus, then you've just made my job easier, which is good for both of us. So really just, you know, be specific, be thoughtful about why, you know, think about what are my goals, what do I want to accomplish in college, and how will this school in particular help me get there?
Yeah. And I guess one tip I give students is to, if you could replace NYU with BU in your supplement and it still makes sense, then you probably need to rework your supplement. But specificity is a great, great piece of advice.
Anybody can jump in on this question. If I'm thinking about studying business, are there certain courses that you are looking for on my transcripts?
Good.
Thanks. Tag team it. So the Stern School of Business is a really popular school at NYU. It's super competitive. They admit about 8 or 9% of applicants. But one thing that they are looking for is sort of math aptitude. So they're looking for students who have taken, she's shaking her head. Don't shake your head. I see you shaking your head back there. Don't do that. Right? So they're looking for students with math aptitude. So at least pre-calc by senior year, preferably calc, preferably AP calc. If you're taking AP stats, that's great. Lots of business students will talk about in their application that, you know, they're interested in starting businesses, right? But we're looking for business students who have other interests, right? So maybe you're into social entrepreneurship, maybe you're really into service, maybe you're really into nonprofit work or social justice or advocacy in some kind of way. That can be an exciting slant and that can make you look very different from the other 15,000 applicants to the business school. So math aptitude, yes, for sure, a solid writing ability, and some varied interests outside of business.
Yeah, math is the big one. So if you're coming into senior year and say you have the choice of taking pre-calc or AP stats, AP Stats is a great class because it's AP, but we really would prefer to see the pre-calc because that's what we know is sort of your jumping off point into a business curriculum. So yeah, math is the big piece, a pre-calc or calc.
Yeah, math is super good. Just do well.
Yeah, do well in math.
Could you address that same question about engineering candidates?
Yeah, it's going to sound pretty similar. Math is the big thing. Definitely calculus. We say at BU we don't have any required courses for admission. Asterisk, calculus for engineering, as well as physics. That's a big one too. So calc and physics, if you can get both of those in. Certainly, if you can get one or both of those in at the AP level, that's fabulous. But calc and physics would be the big ones.
Right, and then for us, if you have the option, if I know your school has the option of taking those AP classes, I would like to see that, especially with engineering or physics and business. Just because if your junior year, you kind of like work your way up to be at a pre-calc level, and then I know your school offers, AP calculus. I want to see you take AP calculus instead of like how to count with your fingers 101. So I want you to continue to challenge yourself, and that's what I guess at a smaller school, we get to know the school specifically, and we know what they offer. So if I know you're not taking advantage of your opportunities, that could be also a little bit of a red flag.
Victor, can you address the advantages of applying to and attending a smaller college?
Sure. So Geneseo, I don't know how many of you guys know much about Geneseo, but we're a smaller state school, 5,500 students. So, obviously it's bigger. It might be bigger than your high school, but if you extrapolate that into a college setting, we are pretty small. And for myself, as a former student of Geneseo, I really understand, I guess. I lived the experience, and I really enjoyed that smaller school setting, just because all the professors, or most of the professors will know who you are. It's a smaller community. We have over 200 clubs and organizations, but you can be a part of a good number of communities, smaller communities at Geneseo. And on top of that, like I mentioned about the professors, that was one of my favorite aspects of going to Geneseo. I really knew my professors, and they knew me. Geneseo has a professor teaching there. He's a distinguished professor of English, and he's been teaching there for over 40 years. And you think a guy who's teaching at a school for over 40 years doesn't have a lot of time, in between classes, and also like people, alumni or whatever. But every time I go back to Geneseo, I'm in New York City, by the way, in case you guys thought I travel all the way down from Geneseo. But when I do go back to Geneseo, I try to make time to go see him, and he'll try to make time to see me on top of that. So I'll just call up Dr. Hersman and say, hey, do you want a cup of coffee? Just to catch up. And so these kinds of things are really important for me, because in the end, he knows what's going on in my life. We're friends on Facebook, so I guess he knows everything. But on top of that, I think the people that you interact with as well know who you are. So I was a tour guide at the admissions office, and actually I worked like I previously mentioned, I worked at a different SUNY institution prior to joining Geneseo. But Geneseo actually knew I was down here in New York City, and they knew that there was this job opening up in New York City. They knew I was in admissions, and they knew me as a person. So they actually sort of reached out to me as well, saying, hey Victor, you did great work as an undergrad, and this is a really great opportunity at Geneseo. And I was like, oh wow, I didn't expect them to reach out to me. I didn't expect them to want me at all. Who would? But thank you. But that was definitely an advantage, going to a smaller school and them knowing who you are and what your interests are. And that that's what really made my experience special while at Geneseo.
Crystal or Julia, what are the advantages of a larger university, and how can a student make it a smaller community?
Yeah, I think you have, so BU at the undergrad level has 10 different schools and colleges. So you kind of have 10 small colleges within a larger university. So I think of it as sort of the best of both worlds. where within, say the College of Communication or the School of Hospitality, schools of hospitality, there's about 60 students in each class year. So you have a tiny community, but you're still at a large research institution, and you have all of the opportunities that come with that. So you get a little bit of a balance there. Certainly you have your community within your academic program, within the school or college that you're enrolled in. You have community within your particular major, in the clubs that you join, the residence hall that you live in. And you're still, even at a big school like BU, you're still looking at a 12-to-1 student to faculty ratio. You're looking at an average class size of 27. It's only 4% of classes that are over 100 students. So going to a big school doesn't automatically mean that everything is bigger. It doesn't mean all your classes will be bigger. It just means that the range of opportunities that you have, that's probably going to be bigger. We're talking thousands of classes every semester, 250 different programs of study, 100 plus study abroad opportunities on all 7 continents, including Antarctica. David Marchant, who works in our Earth and Environment department, actually takes undergrads with him to do research in Antarctica.
We gotta get on the ball.
So if you decide Boston isn't cold enough for you, you have that as a backup plan. But really just the wealth of opportunity that you have is amazing. And what that brings to the table for you really is, this is, if I had to pick, I think one of my favorite things about BU, your experience at BU will be uniquely yours between the major that you choose, the minor that goes along with that. 70% of our students are pursuing more than one program. So pretty much everybody has, a couple majors, or a major and a minor. The study abroad program that you choose, which clubs, which community service organizations you get involved with, where you study abroad, your 4 years at BU will not look exactly like anyone else's. And I think that's kind of special because it really gives you a sense of ownership and a sense of pride that you really took your college experience and built it to be what you wanted it to be. And then when you graduate, you're looking at an alumni network of over 300,000 in 189 of the world's 196 countries. So it's something that really, those opportunities are extending past just the 4 years that you have on campus and really across the rest of your life as well.
So I don't know if you all know this, but NYU and BU compete for the same kinds of students.
Yeah.
We're both really big urban institutions, 10 schools and colleges, 22,000 undergraduates for us.
We're 16.
Okay. I'm over here taking notes about this Antarctica study away piece because we have study away sites on 6 continents. But a lot of what Julia said about BU is absolutely the same for NYU. I think we do a great job of breaking down the psychic size of 22,000 undergraduates into sort of smaller micro communities that really allow students to connect in a way that's authentic and meaningful. So we have 400 student clubs and organizations on campus. We have a Quidditch club too.
We do too.
Yeah, we do too. Our residence halls, we guarantee housing for all 4 years. We have 7 first-year residence halls, so those spaces allow students to connect, first-year students to connect in a really interesting way. We have themed exploration floors that students can live on. If you're into, musical theater, you want to live on a floor where everybody else is in the musical theater, you can do that, right? Show tunes in the hallway. So we really are very intentional about how we create spaces that allow students to create their own spaces, because we understand that New York City is a behemoth, right? New York City is a big, crazy place. It can be overwhelming for a student to move from Augusta, Georgia, I don't know, that's where I'm from, right? And come to New York City and deal with that, and also deal with the bigness of NYU. So we do a lot to ensure that students can have sort of individual experiences on campus, but still benefit from the tons of resources that a large private research university provides.
Julie, can you just, sorry, I should have asked this question earlier. Is there a formula that colleges follow in admitting students? How much are extracurriculars weighted in the process? and other non-academic factors?
Sure. So is there an actual formula? No. So there's no like, your transcript is 50% and your extracurriculars are 20%. And I think you guys would agree that if I actually had to do math as I was reviewing every application, I would still be reviewing applications. So there's no real sort of scientific process to it. It is, as we all say, it's very holistic. And it's human. We are people that are looking at you as other people. So we want to make sure that we can keep that as genuine as possible. So there's no real math or rules or regulations in that sense. Primarily, we're looking at your academics. You're going to college, we hope, first and foremost, for your degree and for the academic offerings. So your transcript really is the biggest piece of it. Again, as we said, within the context of your school, within the context of what you had available to you here. But there's no denying that those extracurricular and the essays come into it as well. We are looking to really build a community, and BU is a diverse place, and certainly it's diverse in terms of academics, with 250 programs to choose from, but also in terms of where our students are coming from, all 50 states, over 100 different countries, every type of cultural and socioeconomic and educational background that you can think of. And they're diverse in terms of their interests. So 450 different clubs, a bunch of study abroad opportunities. We're really looking for students to come and be involved in all of those things. So with things like your essay, your extracurricular involvement, it's not just stuff that we're expecting you to do so that we can check a box and say, yes, you did it and you know how to play the game of college admissions. We truly do value that, whatever that is. It could, like I said, it could be a part-time job. It could be taking care of a grandparent or younger siblings. That's not something that we value any less than being captain of your lacrosse team or heading up the prom committee. We truly just want to see that totality of your application and how your academic strengths complement what you're involved in outside the classroom, and how that will all come together to make you a great BU student.
Crystal, just want to move a little bit into financial aid. Could you discuss what it means when an institution is need blind or need aware, and how do schools actually go about the process of awarding financial aid?
So NYU is a need blind institution, so that means that you never have any sense of how much money your family will need or not need to attend NYU. Institutions that are need aware have some sense of your family's financial strength when they're reviewing your application for admission. When different institutions sort of have different priorities when they are awarding financial aid, right? So for a long time, NYU used a very merit-based approach to how they award scholarships and financial aid, right? So the stronger students would get most of the merit-based aid, regardless of what their family's financial strength looked like, right? But we understood that because NYU is one of the most expensive institutions in the country, we understood that we had to kind of readjust some things to make NYU more of a possibility for more students. So we moved towards more of a need-based model. So talented students, right, are still awarded aid, or scholarships especially, but more of that aid is being funneled to students who really demonstrate financial need, right? So we think that this is a great model because it allows us to support more students, and it allows us to really work toward those goals of being diverse and inclusive, right? When you think about federal financial support, right, so monies that come from, not from BU or NYU or Geneseo, right? That money, the federal government does use a formula to decide how much money that your family can contribute toward attending any college or university. So most schools will require the FAFSA. If they receive federal funding, they will require the FAFSA. The FAFSA is a free form that you and your parents will complete. It's fast-ish. It's easy-ish.
Easier this year.
It's
Easier
easier
now.
this year, right, with the prior year situation, but it's fast, it's free, it's easy, and that's the basic form that the federal government will use to help figure out how much money your parents or your family will have to put toward the cost of your education. NYU also uses the CSS profile. Do
Yes,
you use the
we
profile?
do as well,
Do
yeah.
you use the CSS profile or just the
This is
FAFSA?
FAFSA.
So the CSS profile is a form that some schools will use to dig a little bit deeper into your family's financial background and get a more clear sense of how much needs you really have. So some schools will require just the FAFSA, some schools will require both forms.
And just quickly, the need aware piece, to touch a little bit on that. BU isn't need blind. We are very slightly need aware. And I say very slightly because it really comes down to just ethical decisions for us usually. So for the vast majority of students who are applying, we don't see your family's need. That has no bearing on the decision that we're making. It really just comes down to the fringes of our class and things like the wait list, for example. If there are students that we want to offer a place on the wait list, we know that if in, say, end of May, early June, we go out to our wait list to make offers to students, our funding is gone at that point. So we don't want to offer a spot on the wait list to a student who we know would need a substantial amount of funding, knowing that we won't be able to give that to them, because that just doesn't seem fair to us to kind of hold that carrot out there for a couple months and then basically ask them to take on a lot of debt that we don't want them to take on. So that's where sometimes schools can be need aware. Some schools are much more need aware than others. So it's something that really varies from institution to institution. But for BU, that's where that piece comes in, just when we're trying to figure out if we're putting you in a position that we don't want to.
Anybody can jump on this. This is from one of our parents. Are there any secrets to finding scholarships?
You just go online. There's literally there's like tons of scholarships out there. You can check for companies, anything. I know that there's a scholarship given by Charmin Toilet Paper. If you use toilet paper, explain why you like Charmin's toilet paper. Not in really great detail, obviously, but you talk about, you just write an essay about it, and you just get, I think you get like a good amount of money from Charmin the company. I know students who were looking into engineering, got a scholarship from BMW. There is so many scholarships out there. You just need to take in the legwork. I mean, I guess finger work with the mouse, to really find out where these scholarships lie. Because Coca-Cola also has scholarships as well. Just keep your eyes out for any of the available private scholarships, because there's just money out there.
Yeah, FastWeb is a big one. That's one website that has a lot of sort of like a good place to start in terms of searches. The College Board, which is the same company that does the CSS profile and AP and SAT, they really kind of own the world of college admissions. They have a search as well, so there are some larger databases that are a good place to start, where you can say, I'm interested in this field, or I'm from this state or this town, and this is my background. I got a scholarship from the Sons of Italy Foundation because my family is Italian. And they're typically, unless you're looking at something like the Gates Millennium Scholarship, they usually are smaller, but they can add up really quickly. So there's a lot out there. There's a lot of different deadlines. It's a lot to keep track of, but there is a lot of money to be had. And a lot of schools, I know BU does, on our financial aid website, they actually link out to 6 or 7 of those larger databases to help you kind of find a good place to get started.
And I think you have to treat searching for scholarships it's a job.
Yeah.
It's a process. I help coordinate a summer program for high school students, and we do a lot of work on kind of financial aid and scholarships and all that stuff. And there was one student one year who created, and this was before she even got to us, but she created this massive Google Doc, this Google spreadsheet of all of the 70 some odd scholarships she was applying to, the the deadlines, how much the awards were for, what the status was, where was she in the application process, did she still need to write an essay, and all of this kind of stuff. So you do have to be I know, right?
That's extensive.
She's kind of a big deal right now. So you really have, if you know you will need some scholarships to help support your college education, you do have to go about it pretty seriously. I will say this though, that a lot of the scholarship applications, especially the larger ones, will require you to write lots and lots of essays, and you'll be churning out these essays. But once you've gotten a little crop of good essays, a good 5 or 6, you can start repurposing them, right? For different things, right? For different scholarship opportunities. Not for the same colleges.
Exactly.
Don't do that, right? But you can start to use them as a base to kind of build and help with your scholarship application. So that's a little tip. Treat it like a job. Be very organized about it. There's lots of money out there. You just got to do the work to go get it.
This is for the entire panel, and one at a time actually, as we wrap up tonight. What is your best piece of advice for students and parents as they begin the college application process? Julie, I'll start with you.
Yeah. It's gonna be okay. It really, you know, it sounds a little bit cliche, but I work with so many students and parents that get really worked up and really stressed out, and I even, what was it, 10 years ago, remember what that was like to go through that with my parents as well. It is a very high pressure process. It's a very big decision that you're making, but trust yourself, trust your family, and try to be thoughtful and not so stressed about it. Don't get sucked into applying to 15 schools because you feel like you have to, if you know that you have a list of 7 that feels really good and your college counselor agrees with you. But really, you know, be thoughtful through the process, prioritize what you feel is important to you, make sure that you're on the same page with your parents in terms of finances and what they feel is important, but try to, you know, give yourself credit for all of the work that you're doing, especially when you get into senior year. You know, your curriculum is what it is, your GPA is what it is, your standardized test scores, unless you're taking another test in, you know, December or January, they're set. All those things are ready to go. So really it's just about finalizing the list of schools that you're going to be applying to, trying to visit them if you can, really taking the time to be thoughtful about your essays and, you know, getting those final pieces together. But it's going to be okay. It'll all work out in the end, and you'll find a place that you really love.
My advice would be to enjoy this time. I think you all will be, if you're not already, kind of so caught up in the letters and numbers that are driving you and your parents crazy right now, and then you're fighting with your mom because she's telling you that she wants you to go to this school, but you're saying, Mom, you don't understand, you don't get me, this is so weird, this is why I want to leave for college, right? But enjoy these moments, right, with your friends and with your parents, and look at it, kind of the arc of kind of growth that will happen between now and the end of your senior year. Like, enjoy these moments, right? Don't get sucked into the machine, but also understand how important this time is too, right? You're gonna land on your feet. You're absolutely going to land on your feet. I believe that all of our lives are designed and very intentionally designed. And you will land where you're supposed to land. There was a student that did not get into NYU 2 years ago. She called me crying. Her mom was on the phone. They conferenced in Dad. He was somewhere. Dad is yelling. Mom and daughter are crying. I didn't get into NYU. What am I going to do? It's my dream school. I need, what can we do? And I'm talking to them through this, and I'm like, listen, nothing I can do for you now, but you can apply as a transfer student in a year. So let's stay in touch, and when the transfer application rolls around, we'll work on that together, and we'll figure it out. Fine. A couple months later, I follow up, hey, almost time to apply. Are you ready? Nothing. Follow up a couple more weeks. Hey, just checking in. The transfer application's available. Are you ready? She's like, oh, hey, Crystal. I'm good. I'm not going to apply to NYU. I'm so happy where I am, but thanks for checking. She just blew me off. Like, we didn't even spend all that time on the phone crying a couple months ago, right? So you land on your feet. It's all good. You're going to be great. Enjoy this time.
Right, and I would say, like, just don't lose sleep over college admission. You know, you're gonna get into college. You know, I'm sure all of you guys are good students. So it's not like you're gonna be like, you know, don't go to bed at like 3 o'clock still up. You know, thinking, oh my gosh, I need to like do more things for my college essay. You know, because you know, in the end, you're gonna get your application done, and then also you're gonna get into college. As far as I guess any other advice about college stuff. Really understand or really get to know these schools that you're applying to, because don't apply to like 20 schools because you're like, oh, I heard this is a good school and I heard this is another good school, and you know what, like I've heard all these things about other schools and I'm just going to apply to them because you've heard about them from you know, another person, and you want to experience these things firsthand, understand like you know, what about NYU, what about Geneseo, what about Boston, BU, do I enjoy and can I see myself there, rather than oh, I had this great uncle that really enjoyed his time there and I think I'm going to apply to that school because you know, he likes it. You know, really understand that. So again, you know, just to reiterate on the fact that, you know, everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay, and I think if you guys are all, you can nod your head with me to think that way. But yeah, I think in the end, just don't sweat too much about it.
That's going to be the end of our panel discussion tonight. Hang on one second though, guys. Our panelists will be here for just a few more minutes. If you have a question, a burning question that cannot wait. There are also materials from all 3 schools. Do not hurt each other trying to get to that table. Okay, be kind. So yeah, that's going to be the end of our junior college night presentation. Let's give them a hand.